Welcome! It's time for the Smackdown review here on Wrestling with Regret. Before I get into the review though, I want to briefly talk about this week's episode of Dark Side of the Ring that focused on Herb Abrams and the UWF. I really appreciate all the people on social media in the last week or so who would tag me and my UWF episode in their discussions about in the lead up to that episode and in the follow up after that. It really makes me feel good that my UWF video made an impact on people and that people consider it kind of a nice companion piece to the Dark Side of the Ring episode. They are very different things. I focused more in my video about just kind of the wackiness and the craziness of the Federation itself, and Dark Side definitely focused more on Herb Abrams and kind of his meteoric rise and fall. I think they both kind of, they complement each other, I think. And I really liked what they did on Dark Side, the people they got. It's cool they got Steve Ray. I also had Steve Ray in my video, so that was kind of nice to see. It was I think it did an interesting job of kind of painting Herb as he was a passionate guy. He definitely had this vision and this dream, but all these factors, all these self-inflicted things kind of ultimately undid him. And ultimately, he still had the respect of a lot of the guys he worked with. So it was kind of sad to see them talk about him and God, they really missed him. He really impacted their lives in this positive way. And so it paints a more sympathetic light toward Herb than maybe I did in my video. I wasn't trying to bury Herb, but I think it was just, that's kind of how I interpreted everything. But yeah, I think it was a good episode. It's the one I was looking forward to the most this season. And yeah, I was not disappointed. I think it was a great episode. If you haven't seen it yet, try and check it out however you can from whatever channel or outlet you can get it. The Dark Side of the Ring stuff this season has been great on the whole from what I've watched. So yeah, I was really happy that they covered Herb Abrams, and again, thanks to everyone who associated that stuff with my stuff. It was very flattering. So with that out of the way, on with the review. We don't get a proper intro in this week's show, but we get the cold open where we see Mandy and Sonya Deville getting ready for their big match tonight, and they're being pumped up by Otis and Dolph Ziggler respectively. I did like Dolph though asking Sonya to please take it easy on Mandy's face for his sake, and she says no promises. We go to that match now as Mandy Rose takes on Sonya Deville. Sonya's new entrance attire looks very Broken Matt Hardy-esque to me, the jacket she had before she took that off. During the match here, Sonya is twisting Mandy in knots, putting all these different holds, and she's talking lots of trash, doing all this kind of villain talk and abuse toward Mandy as she's doing, pulling out her fake eyelashes and everything. This is the kind of stuff you can't get from a wrestling show with a crowd. This level of dialogue we're getting here from Sonya, and then later Mandy when she makes her comeback. It's a lot of, it's basically they're cutting a promo while they're having a match, which is pretty unique there. Mandy finally makes her comeback with a bunch of big clotheslines. Who's the bitch now, bitch? And then at the end though, Sonya dodges the kick, rolls Mandy up, and then grabs the tights to win. And Cole describes it as, oh, it's the most emotional match I've seen in some time. Yeah, for a sub 5-minute match, yeah, it was, I will say the match itself was fine. The physicality, the dialogue, I loved it, but the finish to me did not match the emotion and what we were hyping up for this one. It just this super evil psycho heel wins by grabbing the tights to win. So hokey to me. It reminds me in a way of when Goldust and Stardust wrestled at Fastlane a few years ago, and Goldust was he basically made it sound like he was gonna really fuck up Cody, and then all he did was win it with a shitty roll up that got botched, and that was it, and they never touched again. So it's that's what it reminded me of here, where it's you have all this build up for this really emotional kind of no matter who wins, it's going to be a big crescendo, big bam move to knock him out. Nope, just a roll up with some tights. That didn't really match to me. Well, before the New Day and the Lucha House Party and Miz and Morrison and the Forgotten Sons take part in a fatal four-way match for these tag titles on Sunday, we have an 8-man tag team match up next, babyfaces versus heels. So very similar kind of matchup here with a slightly different orientation. I did really enjoy the athleticism of the Lucha House Party, especially how they interacted with John Morrison in particular. I think those three guys had some great chemistry together throughout the matchup. But this has been a lengthy matchup here too. At one point, there's a great moment where Kofi's going for the hot tag. He dives toward the corner toward Metalik and Dorado, and then they both get yanked off the apron at the exact same time. Great coordination there. Ultimately, Metalik does get the hot tag. Looks great. Morrison gets spiked on a Hurricane Rana, and it looked great. The first time I saw it, I thought he really got messed up, but then you play it back, he braced himself, which is nice. Kofi's taken out on the outside by the Forgotten Sons, and that stomp finisher they keep doing, I'm sorry, I can't get that. That looks like a super weak finisher to me. The stomp coming down almost adds nothing to the double team move, in my opinion. Anyway, Miz gets a blind tag and hits Lince Dorado with skull-crushing finale to win for the baddies. And you can see he and Morrison want to celebrate, like hug the Forgotten Sons, and they're just like not having it. I do like that kind of dynamic between the two heeled teams where it's like they have a common goal, but the Forgotten Sons are just not on the same wavelength. King Corbin cutting a promo backstage. He's running down all his opponents for the Money in the Bank match on Sunday. Like AJ Styles, he does flirt with the idea of throwing some of his opponents off the roof of the building, though. He talks about how Otis is going to clog up the elevator shaft like he clogs up his arteries, and how Corbin can smell the fresh air already and he'll be King Money in the Bank. We then finally see the return of Jeff Hardy after weeks of build and big hype packages talking about his rise and his fall. Wow, Jeff, what a ride it's been, says Renee Young in the ring. So what do you have left to prove here in WWE? So as Jeff's making his big, emotional, passionate speech about how he wants the fans to give him to support him on one last good run, we cut back to see Sheamus looking at the monitor and just yelling at it, to the point where he finally just comes out after Jeff calls him out. And Sheamus with a big promo here talking about how, it's like, Jeff, you're great, and for all your accomplishments, though, everyone's tired of the failed second chances, the suspensions, the no-shows, this and that. He says that Jeff's next failure is just around the corner, and he's been trying to extinguish all the weak flames in the SmackDown locker room, and that Jeff's is next. But Jeff strikes first. Jeff hits Whisper in the Wind, the Twist of Fate, and the Swanton on Sheamus, so he basically wins this interaction here. So like any good heel, Sheamus makes a lot of good points, and Jeff Hardy responds with violence. Be that as it may, though, I think it was a good segment. I think, Sheamus being a correct heel and kind of bringing up Jeff's demons in the past, I think that was a good way to kind of bring up the heat, and also just kind of like put more pressure on Jeff, I guess. Not because the onus is like, can Jeff, overcome the demons and vanquish the person who's been trying to like pick on him, so to speak. So curious to see where it goes. We get a face-to-face between Braun Strowman and Bray Wyatt. Bray telling Braun he's always cared for him and he wants what's best for him, and Braun goes, "Shut up, you don't know me." Typical parent-team relationship, am I right, folks? Bray says he wants to remove the burden of the title off of Braun so he can show Braun the way. This rings very similar to the stuff Seth Rollins has been telling Drew McIntyre over on Raw over the WWE Championship, but that's just my little observation. Bray offers Braun the black sheep mask, and then we have the Firefly Funhouse music. The other puppets chime in and tell him they encourage him to put the mask on. Braun, and they tell him to come home, is what they're telling him. Braun says he is home, he's going to beat Bray and keep the championship. Then he goes, "Bye, Bray, see you Sunday," kind of throwing that back in his face, which I thought was pretty entertaining. It was an okay promo off, planting some seeds. I want to see a point in this matchup on Sunday where like Bray fights to put the mask on Braun, kind of like Roddy Piper and They Live, and gets him to put the mask on for a minute and he starts seeing shit. I would love to see that actually happen. Backstage, Daniel Bryan and Drew Gulak run into Otis, and they ask him if he heard what King Corbin said about him, and then they go off stage. We'll tell you more about it later. Ooh, I can smell the foreshadowing. We then go to our next match as Tamina and Lacey Evans, the Dream Team, taking on Sasha Banks and Bayley. I do enjoy that part of Bayley's shtick. Now, I think she's the only person on SmackDown who directly calls out Michael Cole and talks to him and points out what, responds to what he's saying about her on commentary, talk about what I'm about to do. At one point in the match, Bayley hits Tamina with her elbow drop finisher and Tamina kicks out. How many people have done that in the course of the last couple of years, especially with the run that Bayley's been on lately? Lacey decks Sasha out of the ring with the women's right. Tamina hits a super kick on Bayley and pins and wins. So I think the match itself was solid, and then just building Tamina up, I was really impressed by how well they did that, because in one moment, by kicking out of the finisher and beating Bayley, that's the strongest I think Tamina's looked in a very long time. And so it really gives you a lot of hope and makes you want to see, wow, is she going to really pull it off and beat Bayley on Sunday? We get a quick tour of WWE headquarters and all the rooms you're likely to see in the Money in the Bank ladder matches happening. All I was wondering was, where's the Shrine of the Silver Monkey? Then we see a backstage interview with Dana Brooke and Carmella. They're basically saying, oh, shucks, no one thought Dana was going to win, but she did, and they're both going to want to win the Money in the Bank. Risk is worth the reward. You know how it goes. In your main event, a six-man tag team match as King Corbin, Shinsuke Nakamura, and Cesaro are going to take on Daniel Bryan, Drew Gulak, and who's the third guy going to be? It's only Otis. Was there ever any doubt, especially after the interaction they had earlier in the night? This was an entertaining match. I like that everyone got their stuff in, and seeing Gulak and Cesaro especially, their chemistry is just, mwah, you love to see that sort of thing. In the end, end, Corbin hits Drew Goo with End of Days to win the match for the baddies. Then afterward, things kind of fall off the rails because we get this post-match brawl where 5 of the 6 guys brawl their way out of the shot. King Corbin's all by himself, and ooh, now's my chance. So he grabs his ladder and is going to climb the ladder to grab the symbolic briefcase. In comes Daniel Bryan. Corbin fights Bryan off. In comes Otis, who then tries to climb the ladder himself, but he's such a big guy he breaks the bottom 2 rungs of the ladder he's climbing. And so then Corbin fights him off, and then Corbin finally grabs the briefcase. And yeah, I won this symbol. Why did they do that? That whole exchange at the end. Why were all 3 guys trying to climb it? Like, ooh, the symbolism, ooh, the momentum. I hate when they do that in general. And this to me was especially like, why are you all this is not the match. Why are you fighting and trying to kill each other for something that doesn't even matter at this point? Like, why is Daniel Bryan, who's supposed to be this like, smart guy, why is he also climbing the ladder? I just didn't get that. Why not just have Corbin do it unopposed? It would have been just as strong a visual, and you didn't have to have the whole stuff with Daniel Bryan, Otis making chumps out of themselves and jobbing to Corbin in this like post-match thing too. You already had Corbin win the match. Was that not enough? And to have him do the climbing thing, that would have been fine. My grade for SmackDown this week is a C. It's kind of disappointing that since I've been doing the SmackDown review now, like every week has been like some variant of the C grade. I'm sorry, this one feels like it's just kind of like not doing a whole lot for me. I think some of the bigger, like what are supposed to be the more emotional moments or the more captivating moments for me on this week's show just didn't click with me. Like the evil heel, the psycho heel grabbing the tights to win. That's such a... It didn't really fit the narrative of the Mandy Sonya feud, in my opinion at least. Maybe it'll build us something more, but I felt that like you should have had a more impactful kind of like boom, more impactful kind of win either way. I think that again the symbolic briefcase fight at the end, that was to me a waste of time, and that was just like I thought it was kind of dumb. It made Bryan and Otis look really dumb in that one. And why were they fighting? Why were they going to the trouble? Because that's not the ladder match. The real ladder match is happening on Sunday. Save your energy for that. That I thought was kind of silly. Besides that though, not much about this show really sold me on Money in the Bank. You know what sold me the most was Tamina kicking out of Bayley's finisher and beating her. But let me know what you thought about this week's SmackDown in the comments section below, and be sure to give it a letter grade by going to the iCard in the corner of your screen. Stay tuned, because later today I will be putting out my Money in the Bank predictions video, and I hope you all watch that. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.